What's going on, everybody? It's Rod with POW Group. Welcome back on the Pursuit of Wealth. It is Friday, October 31st. Happy Friday and happy Halloween. In this video, we're going to review the Matt Gaetz show clip with Anthony Martinelli, who is the founder of the MJ Herald, and I've had him on the channel before, and it was a great segment, and a lot of people are asking where to get it, and if I heard it, and I thought I would just come on and play it for everybody. So hopefully there's no issues with the Matt Gaetz show. I didn't even know he had a show, but yeah, we'll run with it here, and we'll discuss all of that and more. There was some results with regards to a clinical trial and Alzheimer's using low-dose CBD and psychoactive component, which we don't say on this channel. Still doesn't get approved by the YouTube crew for whatever reason. They don't think it's medicine of the future, but we all know it is. But we'll discuss, and this gives more credence to the fact that we're starting to see more and more studies, more and more research, and it's still on Schedule 1. Imagine if it goes to Schedule 3 or fully descheduled, which they'll discuss a little bit later on in the podcast. Before we get to it, make sure to smash the like. If you're new, you can subscribe. Tick the bell, you'll be notified on any future videos. And when I go live, and follow us over on X as well, formerly Twitter. The handle for that is @GroupPow. So if you're not following Anthony Martinelli on X, you can do so. This is where he posted it. You can find my interview from last night's episode on the Matt Gaetz show at the link below. It begins around the 45-minute mark. It actually started a little bit quicker than that. It was his piece. Matt Gaetz starts speaking at 42:02 is the exact number. You can see here, this was all the way back in August of 2024. I interviewed Anthony Martinelli, and there was a lot of just kind of rumors going around at the time, and we talked about rescheduling. Basically, some people from the DEA were saying that there was going to be they were hopeful of some positive developments, and it never come to fruition. But if you haven't seen, he got some backlash for that, but I think he does a fantastic job, and shout out to you, Anthony, if you're listening. Hope you're doing well, you and your family. And yeah, I think from what I've seen is he's been a fantastic reporter, and he's covered I don't know how many articles on different trials, and just the amount of articles, just sheer article numbers that he's put out this year alone go to show you how busy this space has gotten. And a lot of media companies didn't stand the test of time, right? They weren't able to kind of make it in this sector because it's just so kind of hypey, and it's when it's in, and when it's not, it's not. And when people are losing, 80-90% plus of their money across the whole sector, even MSOS, the ETF, down 80-90%, it's not easy to keep people engaged, right? People like to tune out and take the head in the sand ostrich approach, some of them might not ever come back to the investing world again. But mark my words, once we get rescheduling or better, the amount of retail investors and just overall attention that this space is going to get is going to be unlike anything we've ever seen. And I do believe that this is the biggest threat on, like, the biggest disruptor right now next to, so in my opinion, crypto, blockchain, AI, those are kind of commingled together. But I believe those three sectors and MJ are where it's going to be at over the next, call it, couple of decades. And I think there's so much growth ahead for MJ because it's just been thousands and hundreds and thousands of years of propaganda and just lies and, at the end of the day, and narratives that people want to create. At the end of the day, this is disrupting big pharma, big alcohol, and big tobacco. What other, those are some pretty big industries right there that you're going to have some disgruntled people. They're not going to have too many happy people if you try to take profits away from them, right? So big pharma is threatened because they know that this is natural. It's a plant medicine. It's natural. It grows in the wild, and it's so easy to do, and it's cheaper, right? And they're not able to make as much money selling people these prescription drugs, right? So that in itself, I used to work for a pharmaceutical company, folks, said this many times, they multi-billion-dollar company, they got fined billions of dollars in the opioid crisis, and then out of that, all they could talk about at the company was for like 2 years straight was CBD. Okay. And I was there, and I would hear it, and I'd be, it just goes to show you how disruptive this is and how much of a focus it is for them, right? And then alcohol, it's a better alternative, right? Alcohol is poison. This is medicine. Same thing with tobacco, way, way, way worse for you. And there's absolutely, alcohol and tobacco should be on Schedule 1, not MJ. MJ shouldn't even be scheduled at all. Should be treated as a commodity, as a plant, right? It's ridiculous. But you can see here the MJ Herald clinical trial finds MJ extract with psychoactive component and CBD improves cognitive function in patients with Alzheimer's-related dementia. So they talk about in the podcast, it's not a cure or anything like that. This isn't a fix. It's just helping cognitive function. But again, this is when it's on Schedule 1. Imagine what's going to happen when it potentially goes to Schedule 3 or descheduled, which I ultimately believe that's where it should be and where it will go. It's just going to take a little while to get there. But like I said, didn't know Matt Gaetz had a show, and he has it on the Apple podcast. So podcast.apple.com is where you can watch it. There are some ads, but I skipped ahead through, and we'll play the part here where Matt Gaetz introduces Anthony Martinelli. And it's not too long, so we'll sit here and we'll go through it.
Every so often, a scientific study comes out that makes people stop and say, wait, could this actually work? That's what's happened with a new clinical trial out of Brazil. It's about Alzheimer's disease, the cruel memory-stealing condition that has touched nearly every American family in some way. For decades, scientists have searched for something, anything that could slow it down. And now researchers may have found a small but important ally: cannabis, marijuana. Not the kind at a dispensary or in a joint. This is precisely measured, and it is in a tiny amount that wouldn't get anyone high. It's a dose that includes a whisper of THC and CBD. These are the two main compounds in the cannabis plant. Patients between 60 and 80 years old, all diagnosed with Alzheimer's-related dementia, took that extract every day for 6 months. And here's the surprise: when compared with people who took a placebo, the cannabis group actually scored higher on memory and thinking tests at the end of the study. No wild side effects, no mental fog, just a modest, measurable improvement in cognitive function. Now, to be clear, this isn't a miracle or a cure. Scientists don't see dramatic turnarounds for patients in permanent recovery. But in the world of Alzheimer's, small progress is big news, because this is the first long-term controlled study showing that a cannabinoid treatment might genuinely help protect or even boost brain function in older adults living with dementia. The researchers are cautious. They say we need bigger studies, more follow-up and evidence before doctors start prescribing cannabis extracts for Alzheimer's. But they're also hopeful, and hope matters. Think about it. For decades, Alzheimer's treatments have mostly been focused on slowing decline, not improving clarity. Yet this little low-dose extract did the opposite. It nudged the brain toward better performance safely in people already diagnosed. So while no one's calling it a cure, the study gives us something precious, a reason to keep pushing. It tells us that maybe, just maybe, the answers we've been looking for aren't locked away in a lab. They're growing quietly in nature. And with careful science, honesty, and hope, that discovery could one day help millions hold on to the memories that make them who they are. Joining us now, founder and editor-in-chief of the Marijuana Herald, Anthony Martinelli. Anthony, you've covered this story suggesting that marijuana could be a dementia therapy. What struck you about the data?
Absolutely. First off, thank you for having me on the show. So this study is really important, in my opinion, for 3 different reasons. One, there's been hundreds of cannabis-related studies published this year. There have only been a handful of clinical trials. Because cannabis remains a Schedule I drug, research is difficult, so clinical trials are rare. And this is not only just a normal clinical trial, this is actually the longest, most comprehensive clinical trial in regards to cannabinoids and how they affect Alzheimer's patients. And it's also important in my mind because it's just another study that shows the absurdity of keeping cannabis as a Schedule I drug, which implies that it has no medical value. So, this study in particular, my grandma passed away from Alzheimer's disease. So that's one of the things that initially brought me to this. But, really the fact that it's a clinical trial that shows that cannabis has strong medical value for those with Alzheimer's disease. And this study not only focused on CBD, but focused on a combination of CBD and THC.
Yeah, there is something so challenging about Alzheimer's and dementia, which of course you know based on the impact to your family, where you see somebody's body performing and the mind cannot. And I don't know what has caused such an increase in Alzheimer's and dementia. I've got my suspicion that maybe interaction with all these environmental elements has had a negative impact on the human body. And wouldn't it be something if a plant that grows in nature could provide a meaningful remedy? What do you think are the next steps for researchers?
So I think that, this was a phase 2 clinical trial, and the researchers pointed out that it would be good to have some further trials that kind of go a little further into it. I think that if we can get cannabis rescheduled, as hopefully will happen soon, based on what's going on with the Trump administration, we're all hoping that that's something that can move forward relatively shortly. Once that happens, I think the floodgates are going to completely open. The Marijuana Herald has published at least a dozen articles this year alone regarding how cannabis can benefit those with Alzheimer's disease, both treating the symptoms and helping to prevent it. And this is happening while cannabis is Schedule 1. Once cannabis is removed from Schedule 1, moved to Schedule 3, or even descheduled completely eventually, then it really allows researchers to delve into this in a way that they can't do now. We see clinical trials so rarely because of the restrictions, but despite Schedule 1, we're still seeing these studies that are showing just how beneficial it is. And something like Alzheimer's disease, as you mentioned, it's really a terrible disease. It's really a difficult disease to watch anybody have. And if there is any medicine out there that can be beneficial to them, then that's great. And as you mentioned, this is a natural plant. So not only do we have something that can help Alzheimer's patients, we have something that is natural and safe. And that's one thing that the study noted, was that it was a placebo-controlled study, and there was no noticeable difference in secondary outcomes or adverse outcomes between those who consumed cannabis extracts and those who consumed the placebo. So unlike heavy pharmaceuticals that come with a bevy of side effects, cannabis, at least the cannabis extract in the study, was found to not have any notable side effects. The minor side effects that were noted were, nausea and dizziness, but that was reported in less than 10% of patients. And obviously those are much less severe than pharmaceuticals.
I've long believed that marijuana does not belong on the list of Schedule I drugs. I sponsored bills in Congress to reschedule cannabis. And if the Trump administration indeed does this, I think there are cures that we're not even talking about right now that could be unlocked. You could have an entire envelope of the Trump cures that exist as a consequence of rescheduling. What role do you think higher education institutions could have in doing that research if rescheduling were to happen?
I think that they would have a big role. Researchers from different universities are able to sort of find their way around the tight regulations to conduct these type of studies. But as you mentioned, there's so many things, so many different ailments and conditions that cannabis could help with or even cure that they're not even able to consider at this point because of the restrictions. So once those restrictions are moved, I believe that, as I mentioned, the Marijuana Herald, we've published over 400 cannabis studies this year alone. That's with cannabis as Schedule 1. If it can move to Schedule 3, we're going to be seeing thousands and thousands of studies over the course of just a few years. Wow. That will really, really open up the potential. We know that cannabis helps with nausea, and we know now it helps with Alzheimer's and depression and anxiety. But there's so many other ailments that I personally believe it could help with that, as you alluded to, we just don't know because the research isn't there. And I think that you're going to see colleges just absolutely jump at the opportunity to continue studying this plant in a much deeper way once it's actually removed from Schedule 1.
Anthony Martinelli, the Marijuana Herald, thanks so much for coming on the program and bringing the study to our attention.
Thank you so much for having me on.
Awesome. So fantastic clip. And yeah, it's just imagine. I have a feeling as well that there's going to be a ton of information that comes out after we see rescheduling, full-blown descheduling. You're going to see tons of ailments that you otherwise wouldn't even have probably known about. And I think there's going to be, just once you open up the can, there's going to be a lot of things that pop out of there. And again, I think this is why they're trying so hard to slow it down. So they know they can't stop it, but they're trying so hard in the U.S. to slow it down so that big pharma, alcohol, and tobacco can catch up. And if you look at what's going on behind the scenes, follow the money, look at the business side, look at what the president is saying. It's good. The CBD endorsement, the endocannabinoid system, like the writing is on the wall. But also just look at what's happening, right? Follow the money. That's why I like following the business side of things, because you can see big alcohol is their tentacles all over this space. Think of Constellation Brands, and then you've got your big alcohol or your big tobaccos of the world. Think of Philip Morris. Think of British American Tobacco, Altria, to name a few. You've got big pharma, right, getting into the space. So, and you're going to continue to see them get into the space. And I recently interviewed Tilray CEO for a second time, Irwin Simon, and he talked about upon rescheduling, upon reform or descheduling, could there be an opportunity to partner with a pharma company or buy another pharma company or something to that effect, right? So again, folks, it's going to get crazy once we get rescheduling, and that's just going to be the first domino. That's just the first domino of many. Actually, there's probably been a few dominoes already, Canada as a testing ground, and then Germany and all the development that we've seen internationally. But then, 80 to 90% of the dominoes are going to fall after we get removed from Schedule 1, whether it be Schedule 3 or full-blown descheduling. But let me know your thoughts and opinions on this in the comments section below. We'll continue the conversation there. It's Rod with Powell Group. Thanks again for joining us in the pursuit of wealth, and we'll see you on the next one.